ahead and get started with this morning's meeting, and I'll hand things off to Rosemary to set us on our path for today. Go ahead, Rosemary.
Thank you, Rob, and welcome everyone. I welcome you all to our open table, where we connect with each other every week in imagining and working to build a community where everyone belongs, where everyone has access to safe and secure housing. We acknowledge that the lands on which we meet are the traditional home of the Puyallup tribe of Indians who have lived on and stewarded these spaces since the beginning of time and continue to do so today. We also acknowledge the traumatic history of conquest, genocide, and stolen lands, and the continuing effects of a dominant settler story that denied these peoples intrinsic human worth. Today, I'm thinking about worth, worthiness, pride, and essential value. June is Pride Month, and Rob's flags are waving right behind him very nicely there. And it's a powerful reminder of the work of claiming and expanding the definition of worthiness. While public celebrations in the United States are noted since the mid-1900s, the Stonewall riots of June of 1969 offered a focus for coming out loud and proud that has grown enormously. President Bill Clinton officially called it Gay and Lesbian Pride Month in 2000. President Barack Obama expanded this in his 2011 proclamation, calling it Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, and Transgender Pride Month as a time to rededicate ourselves to the pursuit of equal rights for all, regardless of sexual orientation or gender identity. And on May 31st of this year, President Joe Biden proclaimed the month by noting that, quote, pride is a celebration of generations of LGBTQI+ people who have fought bravely to live openly and authentically. And it's a reminder that we still have generational work to do to ensure that everyone enjoys the full promise of equity, dignity, protection, and freedom. Biden's ambiguous phrase, "we still have generational work to do," acknowledges the deeply troubling political context for celebrating Pride Month 2023, where rights gained through such long struggles are being retracted or challenged at all levels, where commercial celebrations of pride are met with boycotts, where questions of gender identity become existential threats, and where actual violence attempts to impose a former definition of worth. So I was thinking about the connections between our work and the meaning of worth, and I tried the different dictionary definitions. It didn't give me a lot of help. Worth means showing the qualities or abilities that merit recognition in a specified way. Merit in this case meaning the quality of being particularly good or worthy, especially so as to deserve praise or reward. And then I found the term intrinsic value regarding property, which is a measure of an asset's worth, or a bit differently in the field of ethics, intrinsic value as a property of anything that's valuable on its own. The word search got a little circular for me, so I retreated to my own history with the concept of intrinsic worthiness, of being of worth without having to perform in a certain way, of being recognized as good enough just for being who you are, or as having value in being that doesn't need to be proven. And I thought about how all the ways that our social order demands successful performance in order to be praised or valued or even allowed to take up physical space. I thought of the denial of worth experienced by homeless youth who identify as LGBTQ, who are twice as likely to experience homelessness as their non-LGBTQ peers, with even higher rates of homelessness for queer youth of color. Being exposed to discrimination and stigma within their families for not performing gender or sexuality as expected powerfully tears at a sense of basic worthiness. Stigma in families and in other spaces can lead to mental health crises, running away, or being sent away. So Pride Month, a celebration of who you are as a worthy person with gifts and dreams and capacities to love, this can be a powerful healing space. I honored today the work of our Rainbow Center and Oasis Youth Center and encourage you to visit their website for information on events you could participate in over the month. Relating to our work more broadly, individuals living on the streets are seldom seen as worthy. To achieve this would require some nearly impossible actions and reactions to the realities of homelessness. Sometimes the term deserving is used rather than worthy, but the meaning is similar. One does not, in this society, quote, deserve to be in a safe and secure place unless this is followed by all the requirements to be seen as worthy. It's messy, I know, but the recognition of the truth of intrinsic worthiness when greeting or being greeted on the street can mean a lot more than any of us can know. We are all in this together, and what we make up as requirements for being seen as of worth must always be examined for how they either build up or kill the spirit. I end today with a short few lines from Walt Whitman's Song of Myself, a call to reflection and to action, an invitation for a month and a life of genuine active pride. Whitman says, I celebrate myself and sing myself, and what I assume you shall assume. For every atom belonging to me, as good belongs to you. And then he challenges us. He says, long have you timidly waited, holding a plank by the shore. Now I will you to be a bold swimmer, to jump off in the midst of the sea, rise again, nod to me, shout, and laughingly dash with your hair. Walt Whitman. And us dashing with our hair on days that are hard to dash in. So welcome to the work. So let me just, for those of you who are new, make a couple comments about our norms for participation. With the Zoom program, we ask people to
Rosemary, it looks like you froze up. Or I did.
No, Rosemary froze up.
Okay.
Why don't you finish what she was going to say? You know it by heart.
Well, I am going to put the norms in the chat. I already had done that earlier, but what Rosemary was beginning to go through were our new Zoom norms, just reminding folks to mute themselves when they're not speaking, to use the raise hand function if you can, and then to limit distractions by turning off your camera if you need to take another call. It can be a little distracting. And actually, if my background is distracting to someone, please let me know. I can also change that. Our other norms, which I also put in the chat and I will repaste right now.
thank you, Rob. I don't know what happened. I got sent away.
That's okay. So if you want to resume with
ahead.
the community
Go ahead.
norms, okay, I can do it. So what we ask people in this space is to pay attention to lead with a racial equity lens, be aware of power dynamics in the room, challenge concepts and not people, listen to learn, because of the chaos that can happen if we all try to speak at once. Please allow one person to speak at a time. Bring your own experience and make space and take space. And again, assume the best intentions and remember we're all here to work toward ending homelessness. That's why we show up and spend this time every Friday morning. And then the last thing is just be aware of the time and the agenda. Helps us make sure we can wrap up in time. So with that, Rosemary, do you want to resume with asking folks if they'd like to introduce themselves?
Sure. This is a time at the beginning of the meeting for anyone who's joining us for the first time or coming back after being away a while to let us know you're here. It's not an intimidating sort of event in intent, but I know with 68 little squares looking at you, you could feel that way. So mostly just to say hello, I'm so-and-so and I'm with whatever group, if you're with a group. And then if you're interested in presenting your group's resources, we can set up something for you to do that at another time. And Teresa Power Judas is the one that arranges for those, and she'll put her information in the chat for you to do if you'd like a follow-up with that. So for this time, though, it's just to say your name and if you're associated with the group. So anybody who's new, I see Madeline.
Hi, I ran into you guys yesterday at Seven Seas. It's Madeline again. And I just moved back to Tacoma, Washington from Los Angeles after living in California for 10 years and working in homeless services for the last 6 and then doing street outreach on Skid Row. And so I'm ready to be back and get involved, and I'm just excited to be here.
Welcome, Madeline. It was wonderful to meet you yesterday, and I'm glad you were able to come.
Me too. Thank you.
My name is Dwight Avery. Nope.
Oh, go ahead.
My name is Dwight Avery. I have come to this group. I had a couple of your folks here yesterday, Anna and Debbie, from the rescue mission, and they suggested I get involved with the group. I have a young homeless man that's been living nearby, so I've been helping him out when I can, and have put together some, what I hope are some solutions to address some of the homeless issues in our area. And I'm looking forward to working with you guys so I can learn and understand more.
Well, thanks for showing up and look forward to working with you, Dwight.
Thanks.
Go ahead, Cam.
Yeah, good morning. I'm Cam Solomon. I work at Tacoma Pierce County Health Department, and some of my work involves working with homelessness and homeless data. And I've attended these very sporadically in the past, but I'm going to try to join you more often, at least for parts of these meetings. And it's great to be doing this work with y'all. Thank you.
Thank you, Cam. We really do appreciate working with Health Department. And Danielle, I missed you, so go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I'm Daniela. I'm here for the Partner Spotlight segment of your agenda. I'm with Guidehouse, but we are a consulting firm that works for the State Broadband Office. The State Broadband Office is currently undergoing a planning process for an Internet for All in Washington plan that will bring internet and digital equity to Washington in the next 5 years, hopefully. So I'm very excited to share about the work that we're doing and how you guys can all incorporate the wonderful work that you are also actively working on with the homeless population in Washington State.
Thank you and
Thanks
welcome,
for having
Danielle.
me. Yeah, thank you.
All right, that's great. Is there anyone else here who would like to say hello? I guess all of us could say hello. I haven't tried that before, but hello, everybody. All right, Rob, take it to the next place.
Sure. So one final reminder before we move to our first segment, and that is that please do feel free to introduce yourself or drop contact information into the chat. It is a resource that we retain and use during the meeting and after the meeting, and it eventually gets posted to our coalition website at pchomeless.org. That is one reminder, though. If you do drop something into the chat, it will get posted along with the chat notes for this meeting. So just be aware of that. That does not apply if you're sending a private or direct message to someone in the chat, so you don't have to worry about that at all. The other reminder is that if you speak on camera, you will briefly appear on camera while you're speaking in the video that gets posted both to YouTube and to the coalition website. So just like to make sure folks are aware of that. So let's shift over to our weekly item that we call This Week on the Streets. This is an opportunity for folks to share, especially those who are doing direct outreach, what kinds of changes you're seeing, what kinds of needs are popping up, and how the 74 of us in this room might be able to help address those needs. The one thing I will add as context in the middle of this is that I'm a little obsessive compulsive about the weather, and I spend time looking at the long range forecast. It looks like next week on Wednesday or so, we could see temperatures rising to or above 85 degrees, at least for one day. So that, I'll remind everyone, is the threshold that we use where we start making a concentrated effort to get water and supplies to people who are currently living unhoused. So just put that on your radar that we may have at least one hot day next week. So I will stop yammering, and if you can use the raise hand function like Jay has, I can call on you and you can share what's going on. So Jay, why don't you go ahead and get started?
With inclement weather, please sign up for the inclement weather listserv if you have not done so on the listserv on pchomeless.org. For those of you who are new, we also have other listservs that go to different community governance and otherwise meetings. 2, something that we need to think about. There is a lot of hate in a lot of states for LGBTQIA right now. Florida has some extreme laws against LGBTQIA, Black and Hispanic, and just about anything that doesn't fit a certain class of individual. We are going to start seeing refugees from some of these states. The same with the abortion bans and everything else. They're just getting worse and they're getting harder to deal with. And we're going to start seeing women fleeing those states looking for assistance and help, especially one of our neighboring states. So please look into state maps of where abortion bans and otherwise are happening right now and how close we are. Look at LGBTQIA rights. I posted it. It's somewhere in the middle of the norms and otherwise, but it's a map saying who filed what legislation for and against LGBTQIA. Washington is one of the most protected states, and we are one of 10. So I don't mean to scare or cause concern. On the other hand, we can take this opportunity to get ready and gear towards helping these people integrate into the community that we're already working with, and they're going to be there. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay, for that reminder. Marcus, I see your hand up.
Good morning, everyone. As the temperatures, we're into the warmer weather, seeing a need for Narcan. And does anybody know where we can get more Narcan? That's a growing need. In addition to that, Tacoma Recovery Center, we are stepping out to connect with different ones of you to do more collaborative work. We went out once with Greater Lakes, and we're looking to do some more of that. Talking with Timothy Harris, he's presented some great ideas, and so that has spun some conversation within the agency here. So we're looking to do something different that's healthier, that's going to create some better outcomes. Not saying that what's been done in the past isn't helpful, but the need is growing, and so we're trying to be more proactive in meeting the need as best we can. I'm convinced the level of work that we're all doing is so needful, but to the point it's almost overwhelming, and other layers of support and change need to happen, even at the state level, but anyway, that's Marcus Radford's.
Thank you, Marcus.
Yeah.
There are some folks who have made.
Thank you for any of you who would. Thank you for anyone who would like to reach out to me to make yourself available to do some collaborative work.
Thank you, Marcus. And there are some folks making comments in the chat regarding potential sites and resources where you could get access to Narcan in particular. Also, you may try to reach out to some of our health department colleagues that are typically on the call. They may be able to help hook you up or advise where you can go to get the smaller supplies that you can get through the vending machines at places like the First United Methodist Church in downtown Tacoma. Teresa.
So Gerald was not here when I checked before. If you're here, Gerald, shout out. But I want to just update folks. Some of you in this room have signed up to furnish the tiny homes, the tiny shelters at the Rise Center. And thank you for that. We have 15 of the tiny shelters have somebody supplying linens and supplies. We have one left, so the bidding war is on. If you want to do one, let me know. I already put my information in the chat. I'll do it again. But it looks like it's going to be delayed. Apparently, the city had a group of people working on it. Now they're down to 2. Caleb may tell you more when he's talking, but it looks like it's not going to be this coming week as we had hoped and expected, but maybe the week after. So anyway, hang on to your stuff. Give me a call. If you can't store it, we'll work it out.
Thank you. And Tyler, I see you have your hand up.
Hey y'all, this is my first time being a part of this Zoom chat. I see a couple of my fellow coworkers. I'm over at Tacoma Community House in the Hilltop neighborhood. In the last couple of weeks, along with Tacoma Rescue Mission, we have seen a crazy influx of refugee and asylum seeking immigrants from the Congo or Angola. And there isn't much of an explanation as how they got to the Washington area. From what I heard with the family that I was working with the other day, we spent about 6 hours trying to figure out a situation in which they can be housed with, and we got them over at Nativity House. But a lot of these families are fleeing for ethnic persecution or other reasons, and just kind of putting it out there to see if there are any longer term scenario situations for these communities. Thanks for letting me be a part of this chat.
Yeah, thanks for raising
going.
Thanks for raising that up. We're actually going to shuffle our agenda later in today's meeting to shift away from doing our regular breakout conversation and devote some time to talking about this new emerging issue during the second hour of the meeting. So hopefully you're able to hang on the call. And thank you to Alan Brown for raising this up, and others who've been using the coalition mailing list to try to come up with solutions to this surprising number of folks who are just showing up at the rescue mission, at the day center run by CCS and other locations in the city. So we'll spend some time on that later in the meeting. Thank you, Tyler. Patricia.
I was just going to suggest, sorry, whoever was talking about the influx of immigrants, like World Relief or something, to gather like a population and understanding that maybe they can help. Thank you.
Thanks, Patricia. And again, we will talk about that topic during the second hour of today's meeting. So thank you, everyone. Marcus, your hand's up. Is that just still up, or did you have something else you wanted to add?
Sorry about that.
No problem at all. Anyone else who would like to share what they're seeing on the streets this week? All right, I'm not going to belabor it, so we will move on. I do encourage folks, though, to use the chat again as a place for sharing information. The one reminder I would offer is just remember that we are making an effort not to describe the direct location of sites, especially within the city of Tacoma, just because there's concern about raising up specific sites that might be targeted then for sweeps. All right. So our first part, we have 2 partner spotlights this morning, and our first one is coming right up regarding broadband equity access. And so Daniela and Sophia is who I have listed from Guidehouse to talk about this topic for a few minutes. Who wants to take the reins?
Yeah, so I'll be taking the reins. I have a quick PowerPoint, and just to be conscious of everyone's time, I'll kind of run through it real quick and get to what's important. Do you mind if I share my screen?
That would be fine. I just made you a co-host, so you should be able to do that.
Fantastic. So I'll do a brief background of what my work entails, and then kind of how you guys why exactly I'm here talking to such a great group of people working to end homelessness. So my name is Daniela. I'm with Guidehouse again. I'm a consultant that has been contracted by the state broadband office. The state broadband office is working to create a plan on on expanding internet to everybody in Washington state within the next 5 years. We are doing this by getting federal grant money through the bipartisan infrastructure law that will then funnel money into Washington state to expand internet and digital equity. So this is our timeline. We have conducted public surveys, regional listening sessions, and focus groups to gain public input on exactly what areas are underserved, what areas are unserved, as well as any barriers to accessing the internet and any challenges to actually getting connected or using technology within homes. So again, here is a brief overview of the federal grant money that we are trying to win for Washington state. So the NTIA is administering about $48 billion of funding, and they go into broadband equity access and deployment programs in the Digital Equity Act. The BEAD program, which is the Broadband Equity Access Deployment Act, is particularly focused on funding infrastructure for broadband. So that can look like DSL, fiber optics, and anything that is considered something that could actually assist communities. The Digital Equity Act instead is a funding pool specifically for digital equity and digital inclusion. So these are more for trainings, workshops, community partners that are already doing the work on making sure that people know the benefits to internet and are able to utilize them in their everyday. Another important aspect of our plan is to make sure that we are covering these certain populations. These are requirements by the NTIA. And on top of that, the Washington state has particularly emphasized on individuals experiencing housing instability and homelessness. And so we are very much being cognizant of, as we do this research, we want to make sure that we are incorporating the voices of those who are less represented or underrepresented or have never been represented before in state planning. And so that's why we have been focusing on reaching out to community partners in Washington state that are already doing this work and who have been doing it for many years and know the landscape of the work and what's actually needed to help these individuals. Again, so we recognize that many stakeholders are already in this realm and have been doing this work for a long time. So it is very critical that we get that information from local regional planning systems and community partners to directly feed into state planning, which would then directly feed into, the federal plan that will assist with all of these grants. And just a brief overview of what we've been doing. So we have been traveling across Washington state and hitting main areas within communities and trying to get as big as a picture and as many diverse voices from Washington state incorporated into our plans. This is exactly where I come in and into this meeting. So we're actually hosting a focus group today at 10:30 in Tacoma, Washington. And so this focus group, again, we're doing listening sessions and focus groups. Listening sessions are open to the general public. They're a lot bigger. We don't have any restrictions on who can attend. It's open to the general public. And we anticipate we've had about 20 to 30 people typically join listening sessions, but it's open to anybody. So anyone who can come can come. But general focus groups instead are smaller, more intimate conversations where we have a theme to discuss or a population that we really want to focus on gaining their insight and their perspectives and their lived experiences. And so for today, the event today, June 2nd at 10:30 in Tacoma, Washington, is a focus group for those experiencing housing instability and homelessness. And so if anyone is free after this meeting, we would love to incorporate any practitioners who are engaged in this work, people who can represent the voices of those experiencing homelessness or housing instability, and trying to really, get into the nitty-gritty details and the granular details of what this population is experiencing in Washington State, and what they typically need day to day to connect to the internet, what the barriers are to connect to the internet, and general challenges to using devices, to getting devices, what areas they go to connect to the internet. So another main focus is really defining community anchor institutions and what is a trusted location for these folks to go to do what they need to, send emails, connect with family members, go on Zoom calls, do trainings, job applications, housing applications, things like that. So we definitely would love to hear your voice. If you can't attend to this meeting today, we do have a listening session. So again, it's going to be open to the general public. It's a lot more general questions on internet access in general. But if you are able to attend, we are having a listening session in Burien, Washington, at the library there. And we would love to also get any folks who are engaged in this work and who have things to say. And we would love to hear your voice on that. If you can't attend those two events in person, you can always email us any comments on something that you really want to make sure is heard while we do the state planning. And you can also visit our website at www.broadband.wa.gov. I'll send those in the chat after this. And there you can see what we've been doing, what the work really entails, some more background information, and again, submit those comments. We really want to hear your voice, and we really want to, engage with folks who are doing this work for a long time, because y'all are best positioned to really understand the challenges and the needs for your community that you represent. So we would love to get that feedback. And with that, I'll pass it back over to Rob or Rosemary. And again, thank you so much for having me at your meeting today.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. And if folks have any questions, does anybody want to ask a question of Daniela before she leaves this morning's meeting? Monique.
Sorry, slow to get to my raise hand feature. Daniela, question for you. I heard you talking about household internet, things like that, but there's a lot of us on this call who run villages or encampments. Is there some talk in there about making internet accessible for these folks who are living in these encampments? Sanctioned encampments.
That's a really great point. Today is our focus group for individuals experiencing housing instability. So as of yet, we haven't really got into the details of specifically making sure that this population is being able to connect to the internet. So comments like these are exactly what we want to hear today. And I definitely think it's very important to incorporate talk about getting connectivity to villages or encampments like you mentioned. So that is the type of dialogue that we really need to hear about. And we're also actively doing research on to ensure that we incorporate that into state planning.
And just to take that a little bit further, we have internet in our village. I don't know about everybody else, I'm sure they do, but it's spotty. So we've got this T-Mobile, but we would love to have people be able to sit down and apply for jobs and work on resumes, things like that, but we just don't have the capability because of that weak internet. So
Yeah, thank you so much for that comment. I'm sure it's been a very big challenge for a lot of individuals to connect to the internet. Now everything's online. You can't just walk into stores and submit your resumes or ask for job applications. It's all online, and that definitely is a barrier for individuals who don't have a permanent residence. So we absolutely want to incorporate that feedback and try our best to make sure that those really key important issues are talked about and receive federal grants to make sure that y'all have the money to continue this work.
Thank you, Daniela, and thank you, Monique. I will point out, Teresa mentioned she's going to attend the focus group this morning, and we'll bring that issue up at the focus group. So great. All right. Thank you, Daniela. I hope today's meeting goes well.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much for having me here. You guys are doing amazing work and I feel very lucky to be here today.
We're glad you could join. All right, so let's move to our next item in the agenda, and I am pleased to introduce my coworker, Poe, from the Washington Low Income Housing Alliance. Poe is going to give us spend a few minutes going over some of the wins and misses that we saw during the recently finished Washington State legislative session. So Poe, I hand it over to you.
Thank you, Rob. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me today. Before I share my slides, I just want to share a little bit of context with where I'm coming from. I am Poe Leapai, just like Rob said, I am the advocacy organizer at the Washington Low Income Housing Alliance. I also come with lived experience of homelessness and housing instability. I am also a proud member of the Resident Action Project. Thank you for having me. I'm here to share our 2023 session summary with you. But before I do, I want to personally thank each and every one of you who have supported us this past session. We made amazing progress in Olympia, but we have much work ahead of us. The Housing Alliance's 2023 housing justice priorities were created to move us toward our vision of an equitable and racially just Washington, where each and every one of us lives in a healthy, affordable home in a thriving community of our choice. To develop our 2023 priorities, we heard from people across Washington through survey responses, listening sessions, sorry, I'm getting called, and one-on-one interviews. We prioritized gathering input from people in communities most impacted by homelessness and the lack of affordable housing. Throughout our outreach, we spoke with tenants, advocates, and those with lived experience of homelessness to center our agenda on issues that have a statewide impact, that reduce race-based and other inequities, that increase equity, fairness, and opportunity, and that have both immediate and long-term impacts on preventing and ending homelessness, as well as increasing affordable housing. Now, I'm going to shift over to my slides and share my screen so that we're all on the same page, and I will be more than happy to share these slides with you all after this. Just reach out and I got you. Okay, here we go. Sharing screen. Oh, this is the one I want to share right here. All right, cool. Let me know if y'all can see that. Go ahead and put this in presentation mode. There we go.
Yep, we can see it.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Rob. Present mode. There we go. All right. Let's start. This thing is a little lagging on me. Oh, that's just the cover. So yeah, 2023 legislative session summary. And we're going to go ahead and dive into, first off, our missed opportunities this session. House Bill 1389 brought forth by Rep. Rammel, and with its companion bill, Senate Bill 5435 brought forth by Senator Trudeau, as well as House Bill 1388 brought forth by Rep. Macri, would have regulated rent increases, strengthened tenant protections to close loopholes in current law and enforce tenant protections. The outcome was the House failed to bring House Bill 1389 up for a vote. House Bill 1388 died in House Appropriations. Senate Bill 5435 died in the Senate Housing Committee. Next up, House Bill 1124, brought forth by Rep. Peterson, would have provided longer notice of a rent increase and limit late fees charged to tenants. This outcome, the House failed to bring it up for a floor vote. Same thing happened with House Bill 1628, brought forth by Rep. Chop. This would have created a permanent and significant fund source for affordable housing by enacting progressive revenue. House failed to bring that up for a vote, floor vote. Now, let's dive into some of our victories and a few of the ones that failed as well as far as outcomes go. House Bill 1474 brought forth by Rep. Taylor and Senate Bill 5496 brought forth by Senator Lovick, also known as the Covenant Home Ownership Program. We won that one. It passed, and it will enact a dedicated fund source to provide home ownership assistance to people impacted by the legacy of racist housing policies like restrictive covenants. Victory with that, like I said, goes into effect on July 23rd, and the final budget appropriated $150 million. House Bill 1074 brought forth by Rep. Ty victory there as well. Bill passed and goes into effect on July 23rd. This will improve protections against theft of deposit and exaggerated damage claims by landlords. The next up is House Bill 1149, brought forth by Rep. Theringer, and Senate Bill 5202, brought forth by Senator Trudeau, would have invested $4 billion to build affordable homes by sending a referendum to the voters. This failed to get support from either chamber this year. Senate Bill 5198, brought forth by Senator Frame, and House Bill 1129, Rep. Gregerson. We got this passed, and it goes into effect on July 23rd. This will protect manufactured homeowners facing a park closure and provide an opportunity to purchase for homeowners or nonprofits. And last but not least, the very bottom there, House Bill 1541, brought forth by Rep. Farvar, and Senate Bill 5616, brought forth by Senator Valdez. It failed. It died in Senate. House passed it. This would have enacted the Nothing About Us Without Us Act to improve access to policymaking for impacted people. At our 2023 legislative session, we accomplished a lot, and here's a summary of what we accomplished as a community. This year, we advocated for state lawmakers to make game-changing investments in affordable housing and homelessness, and they responded with an investment in the Housing Trust Fund that is the largest single-year investment of state-only funds since the trust fund was created. Here we go. I'm going to remove some of these. I can't see some of them. Oh, there we go. I got it. Capital budget made significant investments in affordable homes, including $400 million for the Housing Trust Fund, $40 million for land acquisition to quickly acquire land for affordable housing to be built, $14.5 million for shelter and housing for homeless youth and young adults, $6 million for preservation and investments in manufactured housing communities, $60 million for infrastructure needed when building new affordable homes. Come on, there we go. Oh, too far, okay. Operating budget included significant funding to prevent and address homelessness. They are as follows: an 8% increase in the aged, blind, and disabled, also known as ABD, cash grant starting in 2024. Over $50 million for House Bill 1260, brought forth by Rep. Alvarado, to eliminate the requirement that ABD recipients repay state support when they become eligible for federal assistance. A permanent ongoing increase of $26.5 million for the Housing and Essential Needs, also known as HEN, Rental Assistance Program. An ongoing homeless services increase of 6.5%, which is a $45 million investment in our state's frontline provider workforce. There it is. All right. Finally, these wins are a direct result of the incredible, relentless advocacy of thousands of people across the state, like many of you who spoke out this session. During the interim, we will be organizing and mobilizing advocates in impacted communities in preparation for next session. Next year, we plan to reintroduce many of the same bills we led and supported at our 2023 legislative session. If you're interested in joining our advocacy efforts this interim, we'd love to have you. Thanks again for having me. And if we have time, I'd love to hear your thoughts, any feedback, input, and I'll do my best to answer any questions you all may have. My email there at the bottom, if you would like to connect, I'd love to connect with you. I'm a community person and a lover of humans. So please reach out at your earliest convenience and let's build people power. And that's pretty much all I got there, I think. Let's go ahead and end this. Oh, stop sharing.
Awesome. And I see Mark has his hand up, Poe.
Mark, yes, yes.
Hey, Poe, excellent presentation. Really enjoyed it. And I know a lot to cover. I have an interest in universal basic income. It's kind of off, primarily, I know some states have looked at that. Oregon had a UBI program, a proposal to give income, I think it was $1,500 a month to people experiencing homelessness. And I know that there was evergreen basic income program that was proposed by Liz Berry out of Seattle, representative there. And that ended up failing this year, but I'm wondering if there is some increased interest on universal basic income for people falling below, the certain standards, federal poverty levels that are housed, and for people who are unhoused, similar to what they're trying to do in Oregon.
There were multiple times where I came across UBI. Actually, I think I heard more the GBI. Is that similar to what you're talking about?
Guaranteed basic income,
Yeah.
universal, yeah.
Yeah, we didn't dive into that movement as to be honest, as I thought maybe because we are connected with that especially when it comes to housing. And but to be honest and transparent with you, I don't know a whole lot about that movement.
Got it. Yeah.
But I'm curious to learn some more. Feel free to reach out. Maybe we can share ideas and share input. And then and then I'll reach out to also like my supervisor and colleagues to kind of get more information and do a little bit of my own research to find out what that entails. And we can move forward.
Yeah, and it's kind of piggybacking on I know Tacoma has the GRIT, GRIT program, the universal or guaranteed basic income. And I think there was in the last week or last days, there was some discussion of increases in the budget surrounding further funding of GRIT to keep it going on. So I'm not sure if you or Rob or anyone else on the call has further information about that, thinking that, if GRIT is successful, hopefully a plan for a universal basic income for those who are unhoused might be, more palatable for people. So,
I agree with you. I agree with you wholeheartedly, Mark.
So
let's connect if you can, if you're at your earliest convenience. I'm very interested in learning more about that.
Yeah, thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And Mark, I can try to dig up some additional information as well. I believe you're correct that there's an extension of the GRIT program that's underway right now.
Good. Okay.
The GRIT program, though, in Tacoma focused on ALICE families that are asset limited, but do have income, and folks who were actually housed. So it would be a different type of pilot, I think, and very interesting to work with folks who are unhoused. So yeah, let me see what I can dig up for you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Jay.
So there is a lot of research from other countries that have worked with people in their lowest class with a lot of success rate. There's also another pilot that I believe is happening or being worked on to happen in Hawaii. We do have one in LA. There is one in New York. There's a couple of others to look up too. It is looking promising. There is, of course, the fallout, which is when all programs where people are just having a hard time. But if it's built on the concept that more money equals less stress equals more opportunity, then it's successful. It combats the problem that I face in my position, which is if I had a guaranteed minimum income and I knew that that was there every month, then I could do so much more. And the fear that runs my life could be less. And it would give people the opportunity to actually succeed because we're not in a crisis state in a constant motion. Most of us who are homeless or have been homeless, like mine was 9 years ago, still having problems, man, because I don't have the money to ride the bus in guaranteed, or I don't have the money to guarantee new clothing, or I don't have the money to guarantee laundry. Or when you're at a certain limit, you are constantly in the red and you have to choose which necessities in a constant motion that you're going to go without. So having a basic income guarantees your base needs and enables people to actually at least function. And that's why it is so pivotal and necessary.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Jay. And as you all know, we're in the business of removing and preventing barriers, and anything that stands in the way, all of that makes sense. What I hope, Jay, is that when the movement makes its way to session next year and there are opportunities to testify, I strongly encourage you to testify and share. That was very powerful what you just shared. And your story can be very powerful in moving legislation in the right direction. Thank you, Jay, for sharing that. And you're spot on. You're spot on. Marcus, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Paul. Curious about more information. And before I put that out there, I want to applaud Jay and the gentleman before her that talked about and brought you to bring focus to addressing dealing with some of these barriers with individuals who are currently unsheltered, and that cycle is so needful to address. And at the same time, we have individuals who have worked their way to a place where we're finding a few here and there. They are working and putting together the building blocks to get into position for home ownership. You mentioned the Covenant Home Ownership Program, 150 million allocated to that, towards that got passed. How do we get more information on that?
Feel free to reach out to me and I'll gather all the information you'll need on your end to feel well equipped and informed on what it entails. There are other details in it, but I would do an injustice for me to just spew it out and think that I know what I'm saying, but I would love it to set a time and space to where we can really dive into that. Marcus, I strongly encourage you to connect. Let's connect and build our community out here in Tacoma. I'm over here off 38th and McKinley, so if you're near anywhere there or anywhere, I'd love to connect in person or virtually.
Any place in Tacoma is reachable and doable. I got your email. We'll be in conversation. Thank you.
Let's connect. Let's connect and build community, Marcus.
Thank you.
Thank you. And keep up the awesome work, y'all. I appreciate it. And I'm so honored to be in this space with you all. It gives me hope and it makes my North Star brighter just being here. So appreciate it.
Thank you, Poe. Thanks for joining us, and
thank you.
Hope you'll be back soon.
I will for sure. Thanks, y'all.
All right. So let's move on to our second partner spotlight of this morning. And I'd like to invite Omari to talk about the Housing for Success bedding supply drive. So glad you could join us. Take the floor.
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Omari, and I work for the Reach Center Housing for Success program in Tacoma. And we work with 18 to 24-year-olds. And we're doing a bedding drive because we're finding that we need a lot of bedding for our participants. So we are wanting, like new blankets or even new blankets donated, queen size mostly, sheets, comforters, blankets, anything that anyone can get their hands on, we'll take. Even hygiene products, we're open to that stuff too.
So Mari, how can we get those things to you? Do you have some information you could drop in the chat maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. I can get the address down, or I can even come pick up some items. We're off of L Street in Tacoma. So yeah, it's not far. I can put the address in.
Great. And Ryan asked a question in the chat. How many sets of bedding do you need?
So for the case managers, we have there's 3 of us, and we have like 15 participants each. So I mean, anything that you can give is would be appreciated.
Great. Monique?
Yeah, I just also want to make sure that Omari and everybody else on the call knows about Good 360. Omar, you can join up with Good 360. Now you do have to pay a little admin fee, but
Mhm.
you know, you can pay maybe $50 for $2,000 worth of merchandise. So it's
Oh, wow.
Good 360. You've got to you know, register and upload your 501c3 letter, and then hopefully they take you and you can just start going on there and finding things you want to buy.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Let's see.
Great. And just so you know, Monique, there's a question from Richard in the chat that you might want to address.
Sure. Richard, Good 360 is an organization that helps nonprofits. So they have like, you know, brand new things from Amazon and Disney and all kinds of places, right? And they charge you an admin fee. And then you just, you know, go on there and say, hey, I want this item. You pay the admin fee and they will mail it to wherever you are. Of course, you got to be a 501c3 and you've got to, you know, apply to get in. But and the products are brand new. Like all the chairs that I had in the encampment came from there. So all the fold up chairs that we had in the tents came from Good 360, and sports bottles and exercise bands, all kinds of things. Some of them I paid $5 for 50 items, and others I've had to pay like $79 or $100 for some stuff. Does that answer your question, Richard?
I think so. Thank you, Monique.
Okay.
And Omari, there's just a reminder, if you can drop your information in the chat for your contact information. Looks like it's very popular. All right, so let's move on to our next item in the agenda, and that is a short idea that Jay wanted to share about the potential of the coalition hosting a barbecue at some point this summer. So Jay, why don't I hand it over to you?
Hi, everybody. So not a depressing or angry or upset topic. Yay. As a coalition, we work a lot with each other and we work for a community, but we really haven't done a lot of base work with our community. And so I was thinking that maybe we could work on a barbecue, a coalition group barbecue where we all get together and throw a barbecue for our community. I was thinking People's Park for the first one because it's on MLK. And it kind of would be aimed at helping everybody who is homeless in that area, but it would also be aimed at reaching out to our community so that we can answer questions and give them faces of the people that they work with and give them a connection to work with us. Because we talk about doing this stuff, but we haven't really built that connection with those communities that would be the most valuable in biggest times of need. So my proposal is, if you're interested, I believe that we have a poll. We're going to do a poll and see who is interested, who's willing to participate and otherwise. And then we'll go from there and see what happens. So.
Great. So this is what we thought we'd do, is take the temperature of the room, see who all is interested, if folks think this is a good idea or not. So I'm going to launch a poll, and if folks can participate. I'll give that a few seconds for people to be able to say if they have an interest or not. I really should have poll music, but I didn't set anything up. So, and I'm not singing. All right, I'm going to give this about 20 more seconds so that folks can participate. All right, let's see, we're up to 51 of the 75 of us in the room have participated. Give that just a second more. Lock in your votes. And let me go ahead and end the poll and share the results. So clearly, about 72% of the folks in the room do have an interest in the idea of hosting some sort of barbecue, and there's 15 folks who said it really depends on the timing. So I think there's a lot of interest and there's 0 no votes. So that's always a good thing. So there you go, Jay.
I'm gonna put my email in the chat. Go ahead and email me if you are willing to be a facilitator or help with planning. And I think that we could make like a small committee and go from there so that we can plan it. Currently, there's a lot of suggestions and leeway here. It's a process that we're going to need to work together on as much as we want to work together with our communities. So go ahead and email me and put in the title, join in the barbecue. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Jay, and thanks for bringing up the idea. So let's move on. I cannot believe it. We are actually almost on time with our agenda at this point. I'm sure that will change, but let's shift over to updates from our government partners, and we will get started. Do we have anybody from the city of Tacoma on the call with things to share? And I see Caleb on screen.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Good morning, everyone. So I think I came in right when Teresa was talking about Brotherhood Rise. It looks like they're going to need next week in order to finish that work. So we are hoping to, as soon as they are done hitting that last nail, to start bringing folks in. And we'll be making sure we're communicating to the coalition when that date is, as soon as it happens. So we're excited about that project and its finishing stages so that people can have a safer, more comfortable space to lay their head while they're working on long-term permanent solutions for housing. We also have a study session for strategies and service update for the study session, which is actually going to be Tuesday, the 13th of June. So as encourage you all to tune in. We're going to talk about a few things. We will touch point on the TMC 819 progress and the data that's required of that ordinance. So you'll see some of those numbers pass through. We'll talk about inclement weather response, which won't be necessarily a surprise for a lot of you. We did not make very many changes from last year's response at this time right now. We will also talk a little bit about some of the other shelter updates. So as many of you know, some have been scheduled for decommissioning or being moved. One of them being Thames 3. We are setting up a community meeting around that to discuss extension of that site along with the council member. So those dates and places will be part of that strategy update, and I'll be able to share those at a later time and how you guys can be involved with that. The other one, of course, is Fob Hope. We have a study session with TPU to present about how to do extension and the agreement of that property with Tacoma Public Utilities. We've been working, of course, with Monique and the provider to have those conversations about extension, what they need in order to extend, what are some additional infrastructures. And so having those conversations as well. And then, of course, talking about the transition from Aspen Court, from shelters to permanent supportive housing. What does that look like with the provider? And then, of course, Thames 4 at 69th and Proctor is scheduled to be decommissioned at the end of the year. And so we'll also do a community meeting about that to talk about what extension would look like, what that council member would like, and how to have that part of that conversation as well. All of these will, depending on how they shake out, will impact the system in one way or another with our initial budget proposal that we had at the time. So we're just mindful of those changes. Things we expected don't always shake out that way. And so we just need to make sure we're adjusting to meet both community and folks who are experiencing homelessness needs. So just being mindful of that. We do also we're going to give a little bit of an update about kind of the strategy in itself with taking down some of these shelter beds in hopes that more housing availability will be coming up. So what those plannings will look like with permanent supportive housing units and other affordable housing units coming online in the next few years, and how we're hoping to transition out of shelter, which is of course a temporary solution, and in order to get folks into more permanent solutions. So we'll give a little bit of update of what we originally thought back in September when we initially brought out the strategy, and how that's kind of changed in some of the programs or other projects that have come online that are scheduled to be finished and ready to go in the next few years. So I think we'll see some encouraging numbers there as well. I think that's the only updates I have, but I see Rob's hands up. So Rob, how can I help you?
Yeah, I just wanted to confirm Tim's 3 is actually the 6th and Orchard site. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, great.
And as a reminder, that site serves single women and families. So that has 40 units and serves up to 60, sometimes even 65. There is a conversation to expand that site a little bit on top of extension, so a few more units as well. So that's part of the conversation.
All right, thank you, Caleb. And we'll look forward to what information you're able to share during the update on the 13th. Let's shift over to any updates from Pierce County Human Services. Jeff, I doubt you're actually on a beach, but that does look awfully nice.
Well, I figured out a way to not be in a room where I'm all, have a bad background, put a background behind you. No update. I know people are excited to hear when we're going to announce our funding awards, but we don't have an update yet on that, or I don't have any other updates as well. Hopefully we'll be announcing soon.
Okay, I know folks are definitely anxiously awaiting those award conversations. So
yes.
Thank you. Let's shift over to any updates from our partners at the Tacoma Pierce County Department of Health.
Was that hard this morning, Rob?
Yeah.
Like, what's that entity called again?
Health Department, Department of Health. It
really
rolls right off the tongue.
I struggle some days. Yeah, it doesn't roll off the tongue. It's better than where I used to work, which was Kaiser Permanente of Washington Health Research Institute. They wouldn't let us like make a fun, catchy acronym about it. So we just had to say that. It was awful. Anyhow, good morning, everyone. I have 3 updates. One is that even though I promised it last week and it's a little bit late, there will be a Gov Delivery newsletter coming out today. That's our normal monthly newsletter that contains our communicable disease updates, environmental health updates, etc. 2 things that I want you to focus on, or that I'd like you to note for this one is, one, there's information about emergency PPE ordering, personal protective equipment, so masks, gloves, things like that, because we're looking at where who has surplus and who has materials to share with folks. So there's a process if you're an agency, especially a shelter, for ordering those, and there's some criteria, but good information to check out. And then the environmental health team also wanted to include some information about wildfire smoke awareness. So that is included in that newsletter as well. Next week, hopefully, we're gonna have another message that goes out. I promise I will try not to spam folks, but another message that goes out about our new webpage, landing page for homeless and human service providers that you've heard me talk about before. That's ready to launch. Would love your feedback if you have feedback on that, and want to shout out folks who gave me feedback in the process of developing the webpage, and that was Kenneth, Monique, and Jay. So thank you to the 3 of them for their help. And then finally, I met with some of our partners, Medical Reserve Corps, to start talking about fall vaccine clinic planning, and things are always TBD in terms of funding and personnel and all of that. But what I'm hoping for is that at least at our congregate sites, we'll do 1 to 2 adult vaccine clinics in the fall and winter, and that would be all adult vaccines that are available to us, including COVID, but not limited to COVID. And what I'd love from you all is I'm thinking about ways to sort of bring other TPCHD and community resources to those, to kind of make them more of event, so to speak. And so if anybody wants to get involved in that, so for example, if we were at Tacoma Rescue Mission doing a vaccine clinic, we could have other community resources or other folks there to talk to folks. You know, of course, depending on what the shelter folks are open to having on site, but they typically love to have people come and offer resources and support to their guests and clients. So if you're interested in working with me on that, I'd love to hear your ideas and your thoughts and have your support. Any questions for me?
Not seeing any at the moment.
All right. Thank you all.
All right, and let's pause for a moment and see if we have anybody from the Pierce County Department of Emergency Management on the call. I wasn't expecting an update, but let's pause. All right, so I'm going to shuffle the agenda because we still have our government partners here with us. I think it would be good to have them here while we talk about the emerging issue that has been impacting the community. And Alan, do you want to kind of, can you kind of frame what's been happening and what has taken place so far? And we're going to devote about 15 minutes or so to this topic.
Yes, I can. So if you don't know, I'm Alan Brown, Housing Services Director, Catholic Community Services, Family Housing Network. So last week, midweek, at our drop-in day center for families, we had a couple of refugee families from Angola turn up. Two families, 6 people total, just with some luggage, you know, all their belongings. Didn't speak English, and I guess the common language in Angola is Portuguese. You know, kind of no clue as to where they, how they got to Tacoma, apparently on a bus. And so, of course, we didn't have anybody on staff that speaks Portuguese. We're using Google Translate to try and understand their situation. And have since then been working with these families on shelter or housing options. Right away, we looked to the other family shelters in Tacoma. There wasn't any availability. We had a little bit of funds that we were able to put these families in hotel, but that, of course, is not sustainable. You know, we tried to connect with, and we have connected with an attorney, you know, to understand the legal immigration or refugee issues with them. But then I also heard from Luis at the rescue mission, and who let me know that 5 refugee families from Angola and Congo turned up at the Adams Street Family Shelter.
And Luis is holding up 7 fingers, I think. So.
Oh, 7. Okay. And then there was an email, you know, that went out to the coalition yesterday that I guess there were some refugees from Angola or Congo show up at Tacoma Community House. I've heard that the Bethlehem shelter has also had families, refugee families show up there, also from Angola or Congo. One of our staff people here, Stephanie, saw an article, found an article on Reddit that said there were 400 refugees from Angola and Congo that were being released from a detention center in Tukwila. It's still a mystery to us how families are getting here, who's sending them, and also, you know, how to serve them. Luis, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, this is the status at the family shelter. As you all know, the Tacoma Rescue Mission Family Shelter is a closed campus, and we run backgrounds. They actually, a Good Samaritan, drop off the first 2 families, and we worked through it, and we were able to put them through our system. And next thing we know, another Good Samaritan just dropped 5 families. Right now, I'm dealing with these 5 families on the lobby of the family shelter, which makes it very, very difficult to service the other 40 some families that I have there. As Alan said, they come from Angola, and 4 of them from Angola, 1 of them from Congo. They speak Portuguese, and every day I find something else. Like, for example, yesterday I found that 2 of those families got appointments with immigration, one in Maine and the other one in Washington, D.C. So we don't have the full story. And honestly, it's incredibly resource intensive to figure it out. We are not getting the whole picture. I can tell you that there's a church in Tukwila that had 40 families show up, and they were sending them to us. We were able to plug that hole and say, hey, stop, this is overwhelming, and we cannot serve them. And there was another church in Kent that was doing the same, and we were able to get a hold of one case manager and tell them it's not working. Where these families are coming from, we have one story of a person that actually came through Brazil, from Angola to Brazil through the southern border, and then made it all the way up here. That was a single female pregnant. One of the families that I have, the mother is 8.5 months pregnant, due in about 2 weeks. So yeah, this is very intense. Immigration is not really been any help so far.
One question that I have, and thanks for Richard for raising it directly to me in the chat, is have either of you been in, I know you're coordinating a bit with each other, and I understand there's been some coordination with the Tacoma Department of Emergency Management, or at least conversations with them. But has anyone reached out to the offices of Representative Kilmer or, you know, members of Congress regarding this issue at all yet?
I have not.
I haven't.
Yeah, that might be one additional resource. Jay, you have your hand up.
So there's a couple of things. I worked at Salvation Army for 3 months as a receptionist shortly around the time of Katrina. And during that time, we were dealing with massive refugees. Have you guys contacted the Red Cross and FEMA? Those are the 2 organizations that deal with these situations primarily, where you can get funds and where you can get help setting them up for housing. You should be able to get vouchers for housing as well, but there needs to be a recognized state of emergency and management situation. So those would actually be the 2 people I would just jump to and speak to directly as organizations, because there's problems otherwise. Also, I put something in the chat. It is Angola's refugees website. It talks about this issue, where they're coming from, what happened, and how they got there. there is a lot of things happening all over the world, and I'm going to tell you something else that you're not going to necessarily like. We are dealing with global crises of climate change and other situations where we're going to start seeing masses of refugees that are held for 2 to 4 weeks for quarantine after these events. And this is one of the first major breaks in this kind of event that we're going to see. I do know a Portuguese speaking family out here. I will speak to them if you guys need interpreters. I cannot guarantee that they will help, but I can reach out to them. They came up here from Brazil 2 years ago and speak English very well, but they are still fluent in Portuguese. This is something we're going to have to talk to Red Cross and FEMA about, though. Also, is that this is going to be a repeated thing. We're going to see it again and again, and we need to make a plan for it.
Yeah, and that's one reason I wanted to bring this to the coalition, Jay, is because I mean, Luis and I have experienced this in Tacoma Community House, but is this a wave that is to come, and how is our community going to be able to respond?
Yeah, thanks, Alan. And thank you, Jay. Jason.
Yeah, so I won't speak for Tacoma Community House, but I worked there for quite a while and just moved on. And I think a couple important things, because what I think is happening, and I think definitions here are important. Technically, with the U.S. Immigration Service in the United States federal government, they're not going to be classified as refugees.
They're not.
Right? They're asylum seekers.
Right.
So what has happened is, I think it was you, Luis, right, who said it perfectly, is they're getting on a plane, they're flying somewhere to South or Central America, and then they're crossing the southern border, much like many of the Ukrainians originally did, a year ago. And so when they're then, what's happening is they're getting flown around the country to different sites to be detained till they can get the first step in their asylum taken care of. Which that takes that's a long process even once they're let out. And my understanding is that's what's happening, is that there's a facility in Tukwila that was used for this over the last couple of years with all the crossings at the southern border. And once they're out, they're out. And because you're an asylum seeker, at least at the start, you're on your own. Whereas a refugee comes with an organization that works with them. They come with some money for housing. They come with food assistance, DSHS assistance, stuff like that. Asylum seekers are going to be pretty much on their own as they do this. I know, I saw it in the chat, I know there's some organizations in King County that work especially with populations from Africa. I know the Horn of Africa, there's a Horn of Africa organization, I think that's their title, Horn of Africa, that does some of this work, but it is going to be an issue. And there is going to be some less resources because of their status. I know me and another person, one of my former coworkers at Tacoma Community House, we reached out to the State Office of Refugee and Immigrant Assistance for some, because the rumor is that there's like 400 of these families. Are there really 400 families? Are they coming out? What resources are there? Of course, they were in a training all day yesterday, so they said they'll get back to us sometime on Friday. And once I hear something, I can send it out to the group as well. But there is not going to be a lot of the government assistance, I think, initially for them. I will say, I can't speak for Tacoma Community House anymore. They can provide English and employment assistance to asylum seekers, but without a place to stay, it's hard to be effective in that situation.
Thank you for that context, Jason. That's helpful. Others with so Alan, how has the coordination effort gone with the city of Tacoma, and have you been in contact with? I don't know that this would be something that would rise to the level for Pierce County DEM.
I just have had basically yesterday, I talked to Caleb about what was happening, as well as Heather Moss at the county, just to let them know what was going on, what we've experienced.
Yeah, if I could, I actually talked to Jeff Rogers. I came back from leave and I came back to this. So as I was informed, I reached out to Jeff Rogers and we've been back and forth talking to other organizations because the problem is that I am out of space and I need shelter for these 5 families. We're doing what we can right now, but it's unfair for them and the rest of the families too. But I can tell you that county knows about it, city knows about it. I don't know if this elevates to the level of starting emergency response, and that's what triggers FEMA. That's what triggers Red Cross and all these other things. But I just for the coalition to know that we're dealing with this.
Yeah, appreciate that. And I definitely had seen it rising up on the email list for the coalition as well. So I know it's an ongoing community concern, and appreciate you being willing to talk about what you're going through trying to help these folks currently. Have you either Luis or Alan heard anything from colleagues in King County regarding how they're responding to the same kind of situation?
What I heard from the church in Tequila is that they were able to place 1 family at Mary's place and that they had 7 families with us. Plus, they put 5 more families on the wait list for our shelter.
Oh,
the tracking sheet. So,
yeah.
yeah.
And Alan, any communication you've had with folks up north?
No, I haven't.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you raising this up. Obviously, we're not likely to come up with a solution to this on this call. Caleb, is there anything you would add from the city standpoint?
Nothing specifically. I mean, I think we're looking at maybe some short-term solutions for the time being, just to help relieve of any of the resources that are being used by Luis and Alan's, Catholic Community Services and Tacoma Rescue Mission. But my goal is to brief this up to executive leadership so that they are aware and can do some of the actions on their end to be able to see if we can find some more permanent solutions. I guess in just terms of, it is concerning that this number continues to grow and we really don't understand, or we really don't know what this can get up to. So we want to be prepared for everything.
Yeah, appreciate that. I mean, if you think about it, what we've heard nationally, this is not a novel situation. It's been happening, especially to large cities on the East Coast in Chicago and other places. So I think it was just a matter of time before it impacted our region. Rosemary, I see you have your hand up.
I appreciate Jason's context about we're trying to get information about what this might represent. And another one that was in the chat about having the mayor be involved with her leadership role in the cities, League of Cities. It makes me think that perhaps we should sponsor some kind of conversation with elected officials or their representatives, because the folks dealing with this on the ground are dealing with it. It's like a lot to expect from them. So I would think something like next week, once we find out anything that Jason may find out about this situation, that maybe we could think of doing a Zoom call that invited people from our congressional and from our county and city leadership.
Yeah, it's a good idea, Rosemary. Jay?
Caleb, could you reach out to the other shelters, Lighthouse otherwise, and see what the impact with the rest of them are that we're not hearing right now, and maybe come back to us with an understanding of what the total impact for the city is right now? Because if it's already affecting these two, we heard earlier from someone else who isn't part of our network previously who brought up a couple of families. So this seems pretty widespread on more than just our shelter level. Getting a better picture of what's happening with the rest of our shelter system would be appreciated. I know that we are possibly going to see them also in our veterans and otherwise too over time, and 35th and PAC.
Thanks, Jay. And Kenneth.
Is DEM on the call still?
I don't think I've seen anybody from Pierce County DEM on the call today.
Okay. Is anybody from the county on the call?
Hey, sorry. This is John Holdworth from Pierce County Emergency Management.
Okay,
Hey,
John.
Just jumped in a little bit late on that. Sorry.
It's okay. John, if this is something that we would need to set up a separate shelter for, and given that this is like a flood of a couple hundred at least people, is this something that you would need permission from a city or county to do?
Yeah. So as I think Alan mentioned, he had looped in Tacoma Emergency Management, and we've been in contact with them. So my expectation is, this afternoon we'll kind of check in with them again and see where we're at. It is a little bit challenging without knowing the total number of people, but kind of getting this sense of what I got from the chat was, about 40 families and, some unaccompanied minors, some family with children. So that at least gives us a starting point, and we can work with Human Services, Tacoma Emergency Management, and Tacoma Neighborhood and Community Services, and at least look at what our options might be.
Sure. That sounds like you guys got a good plan going. Thank you.
Yeah, that's significant, Luis, the number of individuals. When you hear just the number of families, it can sound smaller.
It sounds small, 5 families, but each family has 3 kids or 4 kids. So these are full families. And like I said, I have a 8.5-month pregnant woman on my lobby. So it's getting difficult.
Great. Well, thank you, John, for letting us know that you're plugged in here. And I know from the coalition standpoint, anything that the coalition can do to help elevate the issue and help respond is, we're willing as well. Mark, I saw you had your hand up. Did you want to say something?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I put it in the chat just as an aside. There's a great group called Refunite that based out of San Francisco that works with refugees and asylum seekers that are searching for their families and loved ones that become separated during their travels. So if that, comes up with any of these families that are trying to reconnect, trying to find their loved ones, or, other refugees or asylum seekers that people have contact with, it's a great tool. So that was it.
Great, thanks, Mark. So it sounds like there's some progress in coordination underway. Alan, what would be most helpful in your mind to kind of keep this issue front and center so we can be supportive? The mailing list can be an option. I know it's kind of a chaotic situation, but
so I've heard some suggestions about taking this to our elected officials, which I think would be a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
And then, there's also talk in the chat about either setting up specialized shelter or increasing our shelter capacity. Which, if we could do and get a little expertise on immigration issues, so these families can be served appropriately. I think
Yeah, it seems to me there that, during the winter shelter buildup that happened around inclement weather, we used the site at Holy Rosary inside the building for shelter. It's not the best amenities for somebody who's new to the country, but it would, something like that might be able to at least get some individuals inside, if that decision to fund that opening could be made by someone. Just to throw out one idea, but
yeah.
I do think if it would be helpful, it'd be good to see, to hear. Well, I would personally like to be looped in if there's any way that the coalition can be helpful. So if it would be helpful and folks want to include my, I'm going to drop my email in the chat just so that folks can loop me in, and we can come back to this maybe next week and talk about where things are on the response, and if we have a better sense of the number of folks who are involved. Patricia?
I used to work in refugee and immigration, and there's different funding streams to assist individuals. I also did it through public health. So there's a different way to go about refugee and immigration, housing and so forth. So it's a different funding stream. I'm just putting it out there for other people. There are other organizations like World Relief, but I think they're a little bit swamped as well. And there's another organization I can't remember right off the bat. I was just throwing it out into the universe to help individuals. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Patricia. So thanks again. I'm glad that you brought this forward, Alan. And there definitely is a lot of interest to make sure that both the community can be welcoming and respond to the need, this emerging need, but then also that we don't overwhelm our already overwhelmed shelter system. So feels like those are shallow words because you guys are doing the work right now. but I know we want to be supportive. So
yeah, thanks for the input.
Yeah. All right. So please do continue to use the chat if it's helpful to help share ideas and information. And we will, I'm sure, have more about this on the mailing list for the coalition in the coming days. I'm going to look at our agenda and look at the time. So we are at 10:37. Let's spend a few moments on a review of last week's breakout conversation. We are not going to do a breakout today, but Timothy, can I ask you to cue that up and I can put it on screen?
Yep, all ready to go.
Okay, let me bring it up on screen. All right.
Okay, so last week we had a great presentation from a coalition doing commercial sexual exploitation work, and we talked about how that issue arises in our daily work. And there were a number of observations around this and a handful of sort of direct ideas for things that could be done. You know, I am seeing that we're sort of short on time for this call, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on this. I send this out to the listserv and just posted it to the chat if anybody wants to download it and look in more detail. But the themes that arose is, you know, of course, scarcity, that there's not nearly enough available for single women, the vulnerability of women who are on the streets. This is something that we know well. Some of the, you know, rougher realities of street life, normalized for women to hook up with protector males, survival sex being common in homeless encampments, and how important it is for people to be able to have, conversations with folks about that and be able to offer help in ways that are appropriate. Again, this theme of how difficult it is to follow up with people who are continually being displaced by sweeps and how that seems to be making everything worse. And some observations about how common early sexual trauma is with people leaving incarceration and people who are also on the street. Some of the solutions that people talked about was, of course, the importance of relationships of trust, the drastic and chronic lack of legal aid, which could really make a difference on this issue, and some of the failures of the school system, funding in the school system for doing education around this, and failures of sex education. And I think this next part about human services at the county gets no real support. I think that might have meant public health. I'm not sure. That makes more sense to me. And that's pretty much the roundup. As always, the links that folks drop into the notes are going to get reproduced down in the notes and resources list. So anything you want to disseminate to folks, make sure to drop that in the chat. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Timothy. And even though we're not doing a breakout to do a summary of this week, you might have some news and resources stuff to share separately. So, because that really is helpful. I appreciate your work doing that.
My pleasure.
So I'm looking at the rest of our agenda. I'm gonna run, I think we should run through our Safe Sites for All update, which will be relatively short. Jan is not here today. She is actually, I believe, on a boat headed toward the Yukon and off for a couple of weeks. So we will still be holding a Safe Sites for All meeting on Monday, as always, at noon. The link is on the coalition website. Again, that meeting, the Safe Sites for All name kind of says it all for what happens at that committee meeting. It's talking about the creation of safe sites. It also is talking about issues related to safe parking, both the county safe parking program that's run by Paula Anderson, and any updates on the Holy Rosary site at here in Tacoma, funded by the city. So please join at noon on Monday if you can. Any coalition committee updates we wanted to share? Rosemary, anything top of mind?
Nothing today.
Okay, that's very short. I think let's go to good trouble announcements, and then I think I'm going to postpone and come back to the messaging guide on homelessness. I am going to drop the link to both the Housing Narrative Lab website into the chat so folks can take a look, and a link to the messaging guide itself, and we'll spend 10 minutes or so talking about it next week. Here is the link to the Housing Narrative Lab website, and let me get the link to the document itself that they just released here a week or so ago. I urge you to take a look at that document. We will walk through the highlights during the meeting next week. Rahima, welcome to the meeting. I see you have your hand up.
I do, because you were talking about the housing justice narrative, that's my thing. For those who don't know me, I'm Rahima Williams. I'm a statewide organizer with Resident Action Project, which is a program out of the Washington Low Income Housing Alliance. So I'm Robin Poe's co-worker. And so he's talking about the housing justice narrative, and we're going to be having a panel at our upcoming conference. So don't forget about our conference on ending homelessness. That's going to be in October, right?
Yep.
In October. And so we'll have a panel there with me, another RAP member, Michael Anderson from Community Change, and Laura Hughes from Policy Link, who were really main factors of the housing justice narrative. So you don't want to miss that. So, and learn more on why it was created.
Awesome. And Durahima, I don't know if you were here earlier, but when Poe was speaking, I did drop the link to the RAP webpage, so folks can hear about that. I know that we currently have scheduled a community summit for RAP
Yes,
in South
July
King County.
22nd. And I'll give Rob the link to drop it in for next week. I won't be here next week. And it will be somewhere like in South King County to hit King County and Pierce County. And so we'll talk about advocacy 101, how to tell your story, and also have some local officials as a panel so folks can talk to them about things that are happening more on a more intimate level. So that will be on a Saturday, July 22nd. More info and location to come.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Durahima. And so let's move to good trouble announcements and any success stories that folks want to share. It feels like we've had a lot of crisis and heavy stuff. Do we have some good stories to share here to wrap up today's meeting? Oh, come on. We got to have some good news.
Well, we made it through Friday with no rain.
Yeah, there's that, although I'm worried that we're not having any rain.
And no heat.
Sorry, I was fumbling with my phone. We have 2 veterans over at the Fob Hope Village that are going in for rehabilitation soon. We have one coming out of rehabilitation on the 5th and going into Oxford Housing. Once he's done with the program, he looks forward to training to become a peer counselor to help out with more people.
Awesome. That's the kind of news we need. Yeah, snaps all around. Anyone else who has something they want to share with the 53 of us who are still here before we close up today's meeting? Carrie?
I met a refugee from Cuba who went to Central America. He walked all the way through Central America, all the way up to here, and he was able to find his childhood friend who's located now in Olympia and is staying with him, and was able to get some meetings at Tacoma Community House. But the things that he told me about that he went through, cartels, all kinds of things, diseases, it's I don't think a lot of us can appreciate how difficult it would be to leave. He left his 5-month-old baby and wife behind. He is seeking asylum. So yeah, that's an important legal clarification. But to leave everything you know behind, jump onto a tiny boat, go over to Central America and walk all the way here from there. It took him almost a year. And to finally come through and to find someone that you know that speaks your language, where you can get food that you're used to eating, that's huge. So I've encountered a lot of people just downtown, especially like around the bus area. So keep an eye out for people who look lost, who might be from other countries. And a lot of people, they might have, I've met people coming through Florida, they had maybe a partial phone number for someone. I was able to hook up one guy, he came from Cuba with a toothbrush and a chest x-ray. That's all he had. And he had like 5 digits of the number, but with the person's name, we were able to use Facebook and find, it actually turned out to be his brother. We reunited them in Walmart. Got the night, it was like 11 o'clock at night in Miami airport. I was on my way back and was able to stay with him and reunite him with his brother. So these are such worthwhile things, but it is a totally different situation because of that international component. So we really need to work together to rally community that is invested in that, especially the immigrant and refugee communities that might have the language and things. And so please spread the word on this. It's happening very, very quickly. And I think we'll be surprised even how many more stories we're going to hear just between this week and next week's meeting.
Yeah, thank you, Carrie. And yeah, the journeys that people undertake and the resilience that they've had to display during those journeys, it's pretty amazing. Rahima?
Yeah, I have one more. So I kind of been working with this project called the Community Reinvestment Project that's throughout the Commons when legislative created it. to provide funding to communities across the state to address racial, economic, and social disparity created by the historical design and enforcement of state and federal criminal laws and penalty for drug possession. So most of like the Black, Indigenous, and people of color, you know, when they did the war on drugs back in the 80s. So over the next 2 years, the Community Reinvestment Project will distribute 200 million through more than 17 individual grant programs to support economic development, home ownership, provide legal assistance, support community-based violence intervention and prevention services, and deliver reentry service across the state to impact the community. So they're starting to roll out jobs now. So right now they're hiring for 2 positions at this time. They're the Office of Firearms Safety and Violence Prevention Community Safety Units, and then Community Reinvestment Project Coordinator, Manager, an external one and an internal one. I can send this email to Rob and he can put it in his thing. And so this is kind of huge. It's not reparations, but it's really going back on how they criminalized drugs and how they gave folks way too much time for a little bit of nothing.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, and I'd be happy to pass that along to Rahima if you just
Okay.
email it my way. All right, so we are at 10:50. Does anybody have any final words they would like to share with the 51 of us who remain on the call?
And just one more thing, and they're looking for folks who have been impacted on the war drugs to be on different like committees. So if you're interested and want to put input on certain things, if you can, I don't know how to, I guess, Rob, you can give them my email when that, so I can pass that information along.
Sure.
Thanks.
Yeah, I can pass along your email with the information you send me to reflect out to the mailing list. All right, so thank you everyone for being here today. Oh, go ahead, Monique.
Sorry, I just want to say one thing. Maybe it's for me, I don't know, or maybe it's for someone else on this call, but I just want to tell everybody, you know, on this call that we are all doing important work, and do not be discouraged. This can get difficult. It can seem like we're spinning our wheels, and you just want to throw your hands up, but keep pushing because people are counting on folks like us to help them get straight and get into housing. So God bless you guys. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, thank you, Monique. That's a great capper on today's meeting. And I want to thank everyone who's hung in there on what has been a little bit more chaotic of a meeting than usual, but I think we covered some important topics today. If you have an interest in helping schedule and the upcoming meetings and the agendas for the upcoming meetings, we're going to have a short planning session that will start in about 5 minutes. For everyone else, I hope you have a safe weekend, and we'll be in touch. Use the email list. Keep up the good work, and we'll see you all next Friday.